Security forces destroyed several suicide training camps in Swat. But there were many more in South Waziristan, a tribal territory that was frequently described by officials as Taliban's center of gravity.
80% of all terror incidents in Pakistan are traced back here to South Waziristan Agency, where the trainers, planners and executors of these terror strikes had made their base.
Dozens of child suicide bombers were used as pawns by militants in South Waziristan to resist the military onslaught against the Al-Qaeda-Taliban network.
Mostly, I think the suicide bombing or bombers are linked with South Waziristanis. They had established this as a technique to use the young boys as suicide bombers. They have been training, they have been involved in the training of young boys. So they have picked up from there also, and locals of Swat, the young boys, etc. What we had the intelligence report that they were training young boys from Swat as well. And we have suffered a lot of casualties while during these suicide attacks.
Qari Hussain, a top Tehreek-e-Taliban leader, was responsible for organizing the militant group's suicide squads.
Qari Hussain is the terrorist commander who has been involved in a lot of suicidal bombing, and we got evidence also that he has been training the suicide bombers, preparing the explosives and organizing all types of terrorist activities.
What kind of evidence is it which shows that he was preparing suicide bombers? And have you found any evidence that even children were being trained as suicide bombers?
Children, yes. We got those videos. When we captured these areas, there were terrorists who were killed. And from those terrorists also, we got videos. And besides that, we have the buildings or infrastructure where they used to prepare the suicide jackets.
As the country's top political and military leadership took this war to the doorstep of terrorist outfits holed up in the mountains of Waziristan, Qari Hussein's house was destroyed.
Actually, Qari Hussain Ahmed and Hakimullah Mehsud, they both had houses which were close to each other in the neighborhood. And now these are destroyed.
But by the time the operation was launched, the Tehreek-e-Taliban had paired up with militant groups in southern Punjab. The result was a series of audacious attacks against sensitive military installations in different parts of the country.
This is the main entrance to General Headquarters of Pakistan's military in Rawalpindi. It was here at this particular spot that on 10th of October, that at least 10 militants clad in military uniforms tried to storm the General Headquarters. Their main aim was to take the top military leadership as hostages.
The attack on General Headquarters exposed yet another dimension of this war. South Waziristan may have become the Taliban's nerve center, but the problem of religious militancy ran much deeper.
It indicates that they are much more coordinated. Now, there's not just actually the people from Waziristan coming and attacking the cities of Pakistan or targeting different military or installation. It is basically a much more coordinated. Now, all the band organization and most of the elements of the band organization have in fact become the part of the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan. So in a way, it shows that Tehreek-e-Taliban is not only confined to South Waziristan or the other tribal region or in the just northwest frontier province, but it also have links in southern Punjab and other parts of the country.
This unholy nexus was occasionally discussed by government functionaries. In September 2008, Frontier's Governor Awais Ghani claimed that militants in tribal areas were getting fresh recruits for suicide attacks from Punjab. The growing militant activity in the southern parts of the province was also discussed in the National Assembly this year. Yet, the government remained shy of tackling the issue head-on. Meanwhile, terrorist groups in the restive northwestern territories of Pakistan continue to enroll prospective suicide bombers into their ranks, and they did not have to look very hard for them.
Young people are without much hope in life, and who are from extremely poor houses, extremely poor families, haven't been given either much honor or even much food. etc. Not much education. They need not be in the madrasa alone. They can be in schools, or they may be in the madrasa or nowhere. Such kind of people are recruited because they are impressionable and easy to convince. And once they enter into the, let's say, into the influence of those who are recruiting them to the jihadi cause, then it becomes dangerous for them to leave them.
Southern Punjab was already notorious for sectarian violence, but the militant groups operating in the area also had a strong conceptual affinity with local and global jihadi organizations.
Certainly, there's not much difference between sectarian organization and the militant organization. Their membership overlap. Like, for example, Lashkar-e-Jhangvi and Jaish-e-Mohammed have been very, very close. The members of Jaish-e-Mohammed were also part of the Lashkar-e-Jhangvi, and they were also part of the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan. So basically, they belong to the same group. They had splintered in the past because of mostly because of the leadership conflict. But now it seems that all the militant groups are getting united on one platform, and Tehreek-e-Taliban is the new face of militancy in Pakistan.
Most groups in southern Punjab were previously pampered by the state. Experts believe the government must now dissociate itself from them to turn the rising tide of religious militancy in the country.
A narrative against India, and to ensure that Pakistanis would always be against the other, which was India. So it was done deliberately. So the mindset was there, of course. Then Islam was brought in, recruited, so to speak, and this was political Islam in order to support policies of fighting a covert war in Kashmir, especially in Kashmir. And certain of these groups, jihadi groups, were at that time supported by the state, intelligence agencies of the state, etc. This happened during the Afghan war, and then during the covert war for Kashmir, etc., for a long time. And actually we are reaping the fruit of that.
The groups that were previously considered as strategic assets by the Pakistani state have now become the biggest source of its foreign policy woes.